Perspective doesn't have to be static and straight and boring everywhere. We can add gesture to our perspective. We can deform our boxes in order to make them feel more dynamic. And I see two use cases for this. And the obvious one is when you're drawing organic things, like let's say the human body. You know, the gesture of the body. Things are bending and stretching and all, you know, it's not a rigid box. But I want to add structure to the body. So when I'm adding a box to the body, I have to be able to bend it and stretch it and twist it in the same way that I could do to the body. So that's the first use case. The second one is when you're doing inorganic things, like a house, a computer, a car, a toy, anything that's rigid and hard surface that maybe is made out of boxes. You can deform these forms in order to make them feel more dynamic. And by doing so, you're actually adding personality or style to these forms, and they kind of become little characters that you're bringing to life. Because when you make something twisted or stretched out, it kind of starts to feel like it's moving, because a box, when it's rigid in its perfect box, feels like it's solid. As soon as you rotate it and twist in a direction, it looks like it's going that way. It's in action. And it gives that form of personality, also based on how you deform them. So in this video, I'm gonna show you all the ways that I could come up with to deform a box in order to make these boxes look dynamic. And we've got more perspective lessons in the premium Drawing Basics course. Check that out. It really helps to make free videos like this possible. So the first method is curving. So let's say I have the beginning of a box. Let's say I'm drawing a front plane of a box right here. And if this box was static, I would just draw these lines going out this way and then cap it off. But what I could do is I can curve it. And now this box actually feels like it's either moving or it's soft, but it's definitely less boring than a straight line or a straight box. And the way I think of it when I'm doing this is that it's basically two boxes at different angles, and then everything in between is just kind of curving to connect the corners. So I have this plane here facing this direction, and I have this plane here facing this direction, right? And so this is a box right here, that's a little box, and then this is a box right here. And then everything in between is just these three curves, and now you have essentially one box that we've just kind of curved, gave it a little bit of a gesture, gave it that C-curve gesture. And this could be anything that you need to give a C-curve. This could be an arm, it could be a snake, any animal, the torso of any animal that you just need to curve a little bit. It could be any dynamic form, and you think of it in this way. Now I've curved this quite a bit. I'm exaggerating. This is a very, very curved thing. This would not be perceived as a straight form that just has a little bit of personality. This is actually a curved thing. You can curve something that is typically very straight and give it just a little bit of curve, and that can give it some personality. So for example, let's just say I have this kind of tall office building, right? This is like 30-story building. This one is straight. This is how I would draw it if I was trying to just draw correct perspective. Everything's straight, everything's going to its vanishing points, kind of boring. Now, if I'm drawing a cartoon world and I want the buildings to all be kind of fun and, you know, have a little bit of personality, what I would do is give it a very subtle curve, very, very subtle. Maybe I'm suggesting that this is a really windy place. And I'll show you at the end of this video how to actually apply this to something. Right, so not nearly as curved as this. This could still pass as a building. As soon as you start adding little details like windows, balconies, like a little ladder up here, like a little elevator coming up, and some cars parked at the bottom, a street. You add all that stuff and it just feels like a slightly curved building. Okay, so the next method I want to show you is bloating. For this, you imagine a box, but imagine if it's a box that you can fill up with more air. You just blow into it and you expand all the sides. And so now, instead of curving everything in one direction, you're kind of curving everything outwards on the outsides. So you still have all of the same stuff going on. You still have tapering, except now everything is bloated. Everything is curved. So see how this box feels like we pushed more air into it. Everything is going outward. So if I add a little cross contour to the middle, it's gonna wrap around like that, that. And these inside lines can actually go in any direction. Like you see how this one I pushed upward, but I could have actually just pushed it this way and made that whole top plane feel like it's rounded. So it could go either way and the whole thing is still gonna feel inflated. It's up to you which direction you push it towards. Okay, so that one's easy. So the next method is the opposite of this, and we're gonna implode it. We're gonna kind of suck a little bit of air out of it. So we still have all these same corners, and now I'm gonna curve these inward. So I'm pushing this quite a bit. I'm sucking out a lot of air. You could do as much as you want. You could make it a little bit more subtle, but I want to show you a very exaggerated version. When I implode it, everything feels really sharp and rigid, and maybe a little bit dangerous even. So you have that shape language stuff that we were talking about back in the shape lessons. You know, this is safer, it's a little cute, it's inflated. Like if you're drawing a cute character, you'd use this. If you're drawing a villain, you might design all the forms of the body with slightly imploded forms. Who knows, like this is where that personality and that style can come out, is all these decisions that you're making. The inner planes are curved. It's not just the outer forms, it's all of these planes inside are actually being sucked in. Okay, so we can curve it, we can bloat it, we can implode it. The fourth one is we can taper it. So even when something is perfectly parallel along the sides, it doesn't get thinner or thicker. In reality, we can make it maybe thicker at the bottom to give it that weight at the bottom, or we can make it thicker at the top to make it feel a little more imbalanced, or whatever. These are just options for you to play with. Shape language, when you combine all this stuff, it can come together in your own interesting way. So tapering something, and I'm not talking about tapering like when you taper lines towards a vanishing point. I'm talking about actually making the form itself skinnier on one side. This is an easy one to visualize. Let's say this box here, but now I'm going to make it heavy on the bottom. So it's getting farther away from us as it's going down, but I'm making the lines go away, and that's gonna make it look like it's actually getting thicker. This is gonna make it clearly not a box. This is no longer a box. This is more of like a pyramid form, like a little cone. All right, there you go. That one's pretty easy, and this can go in any direction. When do you use this? Again, on an arm. The forearm at the top is thicker than the wrist, and so you're gonna usually taper that if you're gonna simplify it to a simple box. The calf, even the top of the leg, that whole area gets thinner at the knee. The fifth method is twisting. Okay, so this one's gonna apply quite a bit to the torso. In fact, in the next project, one of the things I'm gonna have you do is actually draw torsos, so pay attention here. So we're gonna start with the top plane. I'm just gonna visualize, just like on a box, what a top plane would look like. And I'm drawing this one facing us more than moving away from us. So the plane I drew is the top of, let's say, the shoulders, and then this right here is the front. Right here, that's the front. This right here, that's the side. And now if I twist the hips that are down here, even more away from us, so I'm gonna see more of the side plane. What I'm gonna see is an angle more this way, right? Because I'm twisting it this way. This edge is gonna flatten out a little more. And then this is gonna start going away from us. So I can imagine that bottom doing this, and the top is doing this. So you can see these edges are not facing the same way. And so in order to connect them, I have to do something like this. And because this is going away from us more, it's gonna be shorter, right? The more we see it, the more we're gonna see its full length. And as it's going away from us, it's gonna get foreshortened, so it's a little bit shorter. Same thing here. This one's going away from us, so it's short. This one, we're seeing the full length, so it's gonna be a little bit longer than that one. Unless you're tapering it, right? If you're applying this to this and you're twisting it, then yes, you can start playing with the actual thicknesses, but you have to make these choices deliberately or subconsciously. You're feeling them. Eventually you get good enough to where you just kind of feel where things should go and what looks good. And when you're deforming things, like nothing is really wrong. It could just look good or bad. And I'm gonna add light cross contour lines on this as well to kind of help me visualize. So I think very clearly we're seeing that this is now rotating, kind of resembles a torso. You can imagine these are like the pecs, the belly button down here, and then you just attach everything else to the body and it's a torso. Once you start combining this with a little bit of curvature, maybe bloating some areas, kind of give it a rib cage, you get all these things together and you can start putting together a body very, very easily. As long as you start getting comfortable with these very primitive deformations. Okay, and the final thing isn't really a deformation, but it is a way to add a little bit of gesture to combinations of boxes. And so the final thing is leaning. So if something is vertical, like a chimney on a roof, if I tilt it a little bit, make it lean, it could give that house a little bit of personality, right? Like imagine a house from like Nightmare Before Christmas or something. Nothing is really like perfectly straight. Everything's got something going on with it and just a lot of personality to that. So let's say we have a little house that's going this way. Whatever, it doesn't have to be a house, it can be anything. Just, we got a box going this way. And so you notice I leaned it just a little bit this way. And I want to stack something else on top of this one, but I want to give it this kind of gesture where these two stacked objects have a little bit of a curve. Right, this is gonna be motion, but it's just two boxes on top of each other. What I could do is I could add another box and give it the opposite direction. So I'm just leaning it. Let's say I wanna show a little bit more of that top plane still. So I'm not curving this necessarily. I could also curve it. But this one's not curved. This one has straight edges and it's just leaning. I'm just playing with the angles of this related to this. And these two angles give it a little bit of motion this way. Very subtle, but when you're drawing organic forms or even inorganic forms, when you do this, you have so much more room for storytelling now. Or even just compositional decision making. You can change things in your scene in order to push the eye in one direction. These are all the ingredients that you can now use in order to make your perspective dynamic. And if you remember, we kind of already did this in the project where we drew finger and all the knuckles, all the little digits for the fingers. We had to figure out what angle every part of the finger was at. So you've been practicing this already, drawing little boxes at different angles. And you know how when you have combinations of boxes, you can give fingers gesture. You can make something feel like it's actually gesturing something to you. Literally, hands will gesture. I'm gesturing to you right now by moving my fingers. Okay, so let's put all of these together, or maybe not all. Let's just draw a little dog house. It's gonna be a very simple house. If you start by just playing with the shapes, so I'm not gonna try to draw a perfect box. I'm gonna start by, let's say I wanna taper the front This is the front of the house and it's getting skinnier at the bottom. I want it to be really top heavy. And I can even start curving some stuff, right? Like this can curve this way, this can curve back a little bit. And I can start thinking of the gesture, trying to design some shapes for this whole thing. And then I'm gonna put a roof on it. So if I find the center, it's right there. And I don't need to do this. You don't need to find perfect centers. If you can feel it already, then that's probably good enough. Let's make it a little tall, like right up there. So this is gonna be the little center of the peak, and I'll just run it right through here, and I'm gonna curve that as well. See, by just curving these lines, it's giving it some personality. And I'm gonna deform the roof a little bit. I'm gonna say, I really like if the top was peeking out like that, like it's going up. Makes it feel very strong shape at the top. And then as it goes back, it can kind of flatten out. So I'm curving the back. And now at the bottom of the roof, I can do the same thing. I can curve it out this way, also getting thicker towards the front. And so now this whole plane of the roof, if I drew it with, trying to do accurate perspective, it would just be a rectangle in perspective. But now it's this like interesting shape that I can play with. So this little doghouse is still grounded in reality. It's still following most of the perspective rules. Things are getting smaller as they go back. We got these are mostly parallel, right? Like I'm still following 3-point perspective rules, but I'm like deforming things here and there enough to where it feels real, but now just a little more fun. So I'm not randomly deforming things. I'm still always trying to remember what the rules were and then break them in a way that I feel doesn't break the visual effect. In fact, it enhances it. And that's where it kind of takes a little bit of practice. How much can you break it and make it still look good or real? Now let's say I got this little opening for the little door, dog to come in. And then I could add like a little name board over here. Actually, I want to give this a little bit of thickness. Now I'm just being picky here, but this is going to be the thickness of the door. And then the inside the wall will be over here. All right, so there you go. So this is how you would apply this, all these different things. I'm bloating it here, I'm imploding it here, I'm curving it, I'm tapering the bottom. I'm doing a lot of this fun stuff to make it dynamic, and it all comes together and looks fun. If you do try this out, make sure to post your drawings in the discussions for this lesson on Proko.com. The link is in the description below. Plus, to get a more complete foundation in drawing, check out the Premium Drawing Basics course. It's got a bunch of extra lessons, demos, and critique videos to really push your drawing skills further and faster. So there you go, have fun with it, play with your shapes, play with your forms, and suddenly boxes can be fun again. All right guys, I'll see you in the next one.